Welcome to Theme Weavers, your weekly wisdom for weaving yoga themes into your classes to inspire your students. We're your hosts, Heidi
and Farron.
Welcome, Theme Weavers. Today we're going to look at creating a playlist to support your yoga themes throughout your yoga class. It's a little bit different than we usually do, but we thought this would kind of go along nice with an episode we did 2 back, which we'll talk about in a second. But just in case this is the first episode you're listening to, check out episode 2 of our podcast in season 1. Obviously, episode 2, season 1. It's hard to know since we have so many seasons at this point. Just kidding. There's just 2. But check that out for details and background on the structure of how and why to weave themes throughout your yoga classes. So if you choose to use our teachings that we're going to offer you today on how you can create playlists as your inspiration for teaching or how to connect it with your inspiration for teaching, please remember that you can use our inspo sheet as a free download as a supportive resource. It's going to look a little bit different today. I'm picturing like a really pretty old school statistical bell curve. I don't know about you, Farron.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it's going to look cute. I don't make them. Farron does. So if you ever have a problem with them, blame Farron. If you ever love them,
My fault.
thank Farron. And lastly, thank you, I looked this up, to the 120 people that follow Theme Weavers on Spotify and 42 people on Apple Podcasts. Come on, Apple Podcast people, step it up. I don't listen to Apple Podcasts, so I get it, but yay, Apple. It means so much to us. And a reminder, we have way more than that listen, but that many follow. So if you listen to us, but you don't follow us, click the little follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts, because we like to see that. And if you enjoy us and all that we're sharing, please follow us wherever you do listen, as I just said, and leave us a review or comment too. You can now do those. It's kind of cool. You can also find us on Instagram to keep up to date with some fun reels and posts that we share. A lot of them are outtakes from episodes that you don't get to hear, so make sure you go there because they're usually really funny.
Super funny.
Yeah, I sometimes snort when I listen to them. Like I laugh and I'm like, I said that. Yeah, it's cute. And we're grateful to all of you who listen. The more you share and interact, the more energy and excitement that's sending out to us. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. And thanks to everyone who has enjoyed Theme Weavers so far. It's been really fun for us to co-create this podcast together. And 2 weeks ago, when we were together, we talked about 3 different ways to pick a theme for your class. So today, we're diving into a topic that ties the whole class together, and that is creating a playlist that supports your theme and matches the energy of your class.
Yes.
But I'm excited for this episode because Heidi and I have very different takes on how to create a playlist and like what type of music we play. So this should be really interesting.
I think it might be less on how we create the playlist and more on the types of music that we put into them.
Yeah.
Although maybe you do create them differently, and we just haven't talked about how you specifically, and we'll add that in at the end, like how we each do our own process. But we definitely listen to super different music, right? What in a typical class for you, like what's the vibe and like a typical vinyasa type class? What kind of music are you playing?
So I feel like the start and end of my classes will have like the typical yoga music, like MC Yogi or like Soul Rising or, like
ambient type stuff.
Yeah. But then like the middle is like pop music.
Yeah, you will never find that with me. I do not play pop music at all in my classes. In fact, I get mad when people play pop music in classes, unless it's you. If I went to your class, I wouldn't get mad at you. Or I don't get mad if I expect it. You know what I mean? Like if I know that that's just like what the class is going to be like, and then I went in with that mindset, like you taught a class that was all Disney themed.
Yeah.
And I would be like 100% there for it.
Yeah. I get it.
And like I've taught classes that have like, I did a glow yoga, glow in the dark, like black light. So
apparently you loved it, right?
I have this weird, let's analyze Heidi for a minute. I have one foot in the like yoga is an incredibly spiritual practice that we use asana and movement to connect us to that spiritual side.
Yeah.
And for me, like pop doesn't belong there. And then on the other, or like these like kitschy classes. But on the other side, I really like to move my body and to sweat my ass off and to like actually get physically stronger and benefit my physical body also. which is maybe a little bit more of like that I like a group workout class type vibe. But I have never really figured out how to marry the two together in a way that doesn't make me feel like I'm disrespecting the spiritual aspects. So like when I was asked to teach a blacklight yoga class and it was like all pop music-y type stuff, I was like, this is really fun, but it's not yoga. It's using yoga asana, but it's not yoga because I don't feel a spiritual connection because yoga is not about the other part. But
Did you
like,
theme it?
it was like,
Maybe that was the issue. If it was like a yoga theme, like a really deep yoga theme, it can still be really like fun, but feel like yoga.
yeah, I don't know. That's where I get stuck. I'm like, yeah, but is that just our way of making an excuse that like lets us do that and not remember what yoga really is? I don't know. That's like where I'm constantly in that push and pull of exploring and understanding.
Yeah, I get it. I think you should come to more of my power classes, other than just the one that's
Um,
on YouTube.
yeah, it's a little hard. You live on the other side of the country and there's no direct flights there either. So it's like a
I
very
know.
big experience.
Yeah.
However, my trauma informed lens also comes into play. I've been in so many classes and forget about trauma. Let's just like go here for a second. Let's start with smell. Are you ever somewhere and you smell something and all of a sudden you're transported back to some place where you associated with that smell? Right. So music has the same capability where you hear a song and all of a sudden you're back in that space of where you heard that
Yeah.
song. Right. So that can be positive. It can be like you could like love your husband or partner so much and it's the song that you first danced to at your wedding and you love them so much and you're in class and that song plays and you're like feeling all the emotions of love for that moment. Or it could be a song that was playing on the radio when you found out that your sibling died
Mhm.
or that something horrible happened to you or where you were like puking in a bathroom and that song came on. Like bad memories also happen with music. And when you're in a yoga class, it doesn't mean that we want to bypass the pain and the bad, but maybe it just like totally takes you out of the space that you're in and brings you into a place where like you don't have the capacity to heal, or it's just so different than what you need to feel on the inside. That's what's happening on the outside, that like it just takes you away in a space that you might not be ready to handle yet. And it could also be an ambient song and like there's no way that you can control that. It just might happen. You might hurt somebody just by the choice of what you play. But
Yeah.
like I
But
try and pay
the
attention.
chances of someone having been listening to like an ambient yoga song while something like negative or positive happened is like
Very
really small.
small. Very small. Unless it's like one of those weird songs that like makes it like piano music of a pop song. You know what I mean? Like and then
Yeah.
they like but like you do your best to try and avoid it. But like it's not sometimes not avoidable. And some people would be like, I remember once I got into like a little bit of an argument with somebody about this. That's a big name yoga teacher. Don't need to share who. And she got really defensive and she's like, well, it's not your job to protect everybody as a yoga teacher. It's your job to give them an experience. And I'm like, whoa, all right, cool. I know that. It's not my job to save everybody, but it's my job to try and mitigate pain as much as I can, unless I'm in a space prepared to support them through it. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I just totally digressed. I mean, I didn't, but anyway.
Yeah. Like, music can be triggering, so it's good to bring it up as we guide people in how to create a playlist.
Yeah. And it's also just a super powerful tool in setting the tone and how we can guide our students through the different phases of a class. It's not just about picking songs that you love. It's about creating a journey with your playlist that aligns with the flow of your class.
Exactly. And that's where this understanding of the bell curve comes in, like Heidi was alluding to our inspo sheet that's going to happen.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
yoga classes follow this kind of an arc. You start with centering or integration. You work your way up the bell curve through the warm-ups and sun salutations into standing and balancing postures. You hit that peak pose, and then you gradually wind down to postures that help cool us down and eventually rest in shavasana. So you can see like the arc of the class, like the energy level starts low, builds up, and then comes back down.
Exactly. Do you feel like you're sitting in statistics class again?
No,
No.
not really. Just back in like yoga teacher training.
Oh my God. I think whenever I hear the bell curve, I'm always like, ah, Miss Lima. Oh, she died of breast cancer, I think. But I remember learning this in her room. Anyway, the music
Whoa.
should. I shouldn't laugh at that. I don't mean that. I just think it's funny that that name just popped into my head. Anyway,
Yeah.
The music should definitely follow that same bell curve that Farron just said. You wouldn't want to start with something too intense while your students are still centering. Like you wouldn't want to play something too mellow when you're leading them into Warrior 2, right? You want it to match. The key is to match that energy of the music to the energy of the class. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has had music horror stories as a student in a yoga class where the teacher starts playing a song that just completely takes you out of your experience. It's hard when that happens. Does it happen to you ever?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like, and I sometimes I'm guilty of this too when I don't like keep time correctly with my class. And so like my playlist is going, but then like the music, like the energy is still like a high level when we're cooling down. And I'm just like, crap. So I need to like change my playlist or like fast forward on it, like skip a couple songs to like catch up to where I'm supposed to be. So like even I'm guilty of it where it's like we're supposed to be like cooling down, stretching, everything's slow. My voice is like, more earthy, but the music's like rah, rah, like
Boom,
whoa,
boom, boom, boom,
calm
boom.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to multitask so much. So you have to be able to remember what it is that you're doing. You have to remember to listen to what's happening in the room for music and be able to
Mhm.
potentially change it and think of what you want to change it to while you're still paying attention to what's happening in the room and what's coming out of your mouth. Watch your students
Yeah.
for safety. Make sure it's not too hot or too cold. Like that nobody's struggling and suffering. Like you just have to have so many eyeballs and parts of your brain working at once.
It's hard being a yoga teacher.
I mean, forget about all the other parts, like being a marketing guru, um, being able to like be a bookkeeper, like self promote yourself, being able to use all these different computer programs. Like there's so many aspects.
There's so much. And
A
I don't think
cleaner,
a lot of people realize that.
that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting thing to talk about. Like how many roles, a philosopher, right? How many roles do you have to
Yeah.
wear? An anatomical expert.
Right? Yeah, there's so much to it. And so it's really funny when people are just like, "Oh, you teach yoga?" Like it's not a real job. Like, yeah. Bro,
I
it's
get
so
so
hard.
mad. Yes, bro. Yes, bro. It's so hard. If I said that, I feel so weird. Bro, it's so hard. I can't do it. Can't do it, Baron.
All right. So let's break this down. You're starting the class with your Dharma talk and centering. The music there should be calming and grounding, something that helps your students turn inward. Okay, wait, pause. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have music going while you're doing your Dharma talk? I
Yeah.
don't.
It's funny that you say that because I planned on us talking about that in a little bit. Um, yeah. So sometimes I do, but I do in my playlist, you know how you can do like moments of silence? It'll be
You
like an
taught me
empty
that.
track. Yeah. So sometimes I'll put in an empty track. Because if I don't, then my playlist, I forget. If I don't press play before starting the class, there will be nothing playing the entire class. Like I don't remember when like I don't want to have to think about my music at all, personally. Like if I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it, it needs to be set it and forget it.
Yeah.
If I needed to think about it, I can't. I just can't. My brain, I will forget, and then halfway through class, I'll be like, "Oh shoot, I needed to press play," and then you press play, and you're in like the total wrong part of the class, and it doesn't match the
Yeah.
energy. So I'll either have very ambient, like, okay, I think that was the Titanic music, but like, my heart will go on. Okay, so either I'll have that playing or moments of silence. And if you don't know
Okay.
about the moments of silence, message us and I can help share that with you as we interact with each other. I will show you how to
Yeah.
access that.
They're like actual tracks that are just like silent for like 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Don't
It's
give
really
it
cool.
away. They're supposed to reach out to
Oh,
us.
my bad.
Yeah. All right. So either something soft, instrumental, or nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I do nothing. I start my playlist after my Dharma talk. So my playlists are like 58 minutes ish. Like Heidi said, it might be nature sounds, slow ambient track with minimal vocals, whatever. So this is where we get to that part. I didn't read ahead.
Mm-hmm,
Or
mm-hmm.
you can be like me, where you just don't play any music at all and you let your voice give the teaching, and then you arrive at the first posture, and that's when you start your music.
I love it when it starts and ends in silence. I do like that. I just have to put it in because otherwise the whole class will be silent. So this actually reminds me, all of this is a guideline, right? We want to offer all of this to you as a guideline. And the challenging part is that you might love what you create when following these guidelines, but something just doesn't land about it with someone in your room. And we sort of talked about this, right? Maybe the song triggers a memory or just takes them away from the experience. So we do our best here, knowing that we might not be able to please everyone, right? That's very important. Even when we do our best, you will not please everyone, no matter what you do, whether it's the music or something else in class. Somebody's going to be like, I hated when Farron did that or when she played that. And it's like, early teacher you would probably take that like to heart and try and quickly never do it again. But then somebody else would be like, I can't believe you took that away. I loved it when you used to play that song. It's like, oh my God. No, you just got to be authentic to you.
Yeah.
Doing the best you can. But okay, I digress as usual. Okay, so then you finish this ambient Dharma talk and like centering poses. And then as you move into sun salutations and standing postures, the energy starts to build like that bell curve. This is where you might introduce tracks with a steady beat. Songs that have a bit more rhythm, but are still smooth and can help students find that rhythm in their own bodies.
Yeah. And as you continue to build towards the peak of the class, you start to incorporate music with more intensity, maybe something with stronger percussion or more uplifting lyrics if it fits the theme. And a fun way to play with this is by looking at beats per minute or BPMs. But I'll let Heidi talk about that because she's better with that stuff. I don't look at BPMs.
You never do?
No.
When I first became a yoga teacher, and if anybody wants these, just let me know, reach out. I still do this, went wackadoodle and spent probably like 3 months listening to every song I could ever want to play in a yoga class and putting it into a specific playlist that fit the part of the bell curve. So I have like my centering songs. I have my like the building music. I have my land music, and then I have my Shavasana cool down music. And then when I make playlists,
music?
Land, like you land at your peak pose. So like building is like the sun salutations. Landing is what I always call it, like when you land into that like whole peak of the bell curve and then you work your way down. So I have 4 different playlists, or maybe 5, that align with these different points. And so then when I make playlists, I generally pick and choose, and those match the BPMs, which I'll talk about in a second. But I also then have like another playlist that's like yoga songs with words. And so then if I want to interject a song with words specifically, I would then pick which one aligns with the different theme. I'm getting ahead of myself, but basically I cultivate these playlists that I can then like grab bag from for different playlists.
I like that. That's smart.
Yeah, it was very time consuming, but I was like super in it. And now I like put no thought into it whatsoever. And I just grab old ones. It's the last thing that I think about anymore, where it used to be a really important thing that I thought about. But we'll talk about that.
So,
yeah.
Okay. You're going to come back to BPMs?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to BPM. So I'll try and remember, I promise. So yes, after the peak pose, you then begin to cool down. Here, the music starts to slow down again, choosing tracks that help your students transition out of that high energy into something more relaxed, leading them gently towards Shavasana. Where like when Farron was like, sometimes I lead them gently and shoot, I'm still in the
Yeah.
right? You gotta like, you want to try and not have that happen as best that you can.
Yeah. Show. And then for Shavasana itself, you want something really peaceful, like a really soft instrumental, a slow mantra, or even just silence. The goal is to create a space where your students can completely let go. And if your mind is still like following along with like lyrics that are going, like that's hard to do. So it's better with just like ambient tracks.
There's this one track I sometimes play at the end, and I always forget that this is the track by accident. It's like I love it. It's like a perfect ambient music. I say ambient and you say ambient. I just noticed. Is one right, or is it just dialect?
It's probably just dialect.
Okay.
Ambient.
Ambient. And you're saying ambient? Now I forget. Whatever.
Ambient.
I say ambient, right?
Yeah.
Like Ambien? Like isn't that like a sleep aid? Ambien?
Yeah.
No. Interesting.
Let me play it on Google.
Okay.
Ambient. So you're pronouncing it Americanized. Yes.
And what were you saying? It French? Sounds
very
British? Ambient.
I'm British, apparently.
You're now a British Mexican. Okay, cool. So there's the song. It's like super chill. I love it. It starts out so great. And then after like 3 minutes, it'll go like, breathe.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Do you know the song I'm talking about? I'm always like, shoot, I forgot. I don't like to play that song because it's so chill. And then this voice, breathe. It just like freaks me out every time. And then I forget because it's like at the end of one random playlist.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into how theming ties in, let me address what Farron just brought up so I don't forget about the BPMs. So, as I said, I spent a bit of time looking at how many beats per minute a song has and how that lines up with this bell curve of a typical vinyasa class. If you have no
There's my
idea,
question.
yeah,
How do you know what the BPM is? Like, if you just look at a song on Spotify, does it tell you that somewhere?
no.
How do you get that info?
So, um, different ways. You could be a total geek. So, in case you don't know, a BPM is beats per minute, meaning like, I hope you can hear my snap. Like, this is a slower BPM and this is a faster BPM, right?
Yeah.
So, one way that you can figure it out is literally by going to our friend Google, and that's the British way of saying it. Just kidding. And you say, like, let's say you want to know somewhere over the rainbow how many beats per minute that is. You go to Google and you say, what's the BPM for somewhere over the rainbow? And it tells you. So that's one way. It's super easy to do it that way. Another way is to literally have a metronome next to you. A metronome, if you don't know, is like the thing that clicks to keep you the beat, so you can set the BPM. They have them as like free apps on your phone. I have like an old school one on my piano that like looks like a tick tick clock, and you slide the weight and it changes the BPM of like the weight that's on the thing. But you can listen to the music and try and align the beat per minute with it. So like you want the click to line up. So like sometimes when I'm driving in my car, some people have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'll be listening to music and it's raining and the windshield wipers are going, and it drives me nuts because the windshield wipers are moving at a different BPM than the music, and so it doesn't go together, and I'm like, yeah, like it like hurts my brain hearing like the two different rhythms going. Yeah.
Wow. Things that
Yeah.
bother Heidi.
Yeah, that's if you're a musician, that like kind of stuff hits you. Same like if somebody's like out of pitch, I can like feel it in my teeth. Mm-hmm. So this is like a lot of effort, so you might not like it. You can also just feel like forget about the BPM. You can also just like feel, does the song feel faster or slower, or does it have like a heavy drum, like that or like a gentle rhythm, right? You can kind of hear that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're teaching though a restorative class or a yin class or something that's like not a vinyasa-esque one, that like vinyasa classes tend to follow that bell curve, which is what we're talking about. So this BPM fits the actual bell curve. So if you're doing a class that doesn't fit the bell curve and the whole class is just like really flat or really high energy with no coming in and out, like ignore this and fast forward. But if you want to know about BPMs, this is what I generally try and follow. So the opening of your class, which is, you know, when you're doing centering, your Dharma talk, integration, no beat per minute at all. So it's very like sattvic, if you will. Sattvic, like sattva. But drones, a drone is like, you know, when you hear like a harmonium or something just like play a note and it doesn't change and it's like, oh, that's a drone. Or ambient ambient sounds, which is like when you think of like a spa and it's like wind chimes or like
Water flowing.
that kind of had a BPM. So yeah, water flowing, like the crackling of a fire, right? So generally that's for like 5 to 8 minutes, no beat per minute at all, but for like 5 to 8 minutes of your class, that's that part. And then as you start to build, that's your warm up to your vinyasas, your sun salutations, your cows and your cats, maybe like a nice long ragdoll. If you're thinking about beats per minute, I tend to think 64 to 76 beat per minute. So you want to think about songs in that range. And if you didn't want to think about like what's the beat per minute of the song, you can even Google what songs fall in 64 to 76 beat per minute. And you'll find like a whole long list, especially with AI these days, that can come up with so much for you.
Yeah.
Then what I call the landing section, that's when you come into like your standing poses, your peak pose, your balance work, your core work, maybe some inversions or back bends, some like more complex hip openers, forward bending, stuff like that. 105 to 120 beat per minute. So the 120 is going to be fast. 105 is fast, but not quite as fast, right? But this is all faster than the last section.
Can I interrupt there?
Obviously.
So like when I think of a beat per minute, the only thing that comes to mind is like the rate at which you're supposed to give CPR, like chest compressions. And I can't remember what number it is. I want to say it's like 120, but it's like ah 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 staying
Staying
alive,
alive,
staying
staying
alive.
alive.
Like that's how you're supposed to like know the beat. Like, yeah, of how fast to give chest compressions. Right?
I've heard the staying alive, but I haven't heard that as like a beat per minute. But let me actually do this for you guys because it might be interesting. I'm opening up there's changes in the app. So in the 64 to 76 range, it sounds like this. This is 64, and then 76 goes up to, so that's like the building. So like think inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. For me, that's like a fast breathing rate. But if you're doing breath to movement, I prefer to stay closer to the 64. So it'd be like inhale, 2, 3, 4, which is even faster me. I tend to go closer to the 60 or even a little bit lower. But whatever, for build, that's the energy you want to do. But then as you're getting into like the landing stuff, just to give you context, everybody. So what is it? What I say? 105? Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive. Right? And then if you're going up to 120, maybe you start at 105 and then you go up to 120. This is too fast for
Yeah, it says staying alive is 104 beats per minute.
I was so close. I said 105. Okay, very
Yeah.
close. This is 120. So maybe this is your peak pose. Maybe you have like 2 songs at the landing of 105 and then you go up to like 110 and then a song at 120 and then you work your way back down to like say 110 for a song and then you work your way down back to 105 for a song and then you go back down to maybe 76 as you come into like a pigeon or something like that, right? If we're going on a bell curve, we're going back down. This could be like a song for your pigeon, which is like, I am light, I am light. You know that song, NDRE?
Yeah. Yep.
I am light, I am light. It fits in with that kind of, right?
Okay.
So, oh, it's still going. Hang on. Let me actually quit the app. So if this is like over your head and you're not interested in it, that's totally fine, but maybe it helps you. And then for Shavasana, you can do songs that have a little bit of a beat. It could be 5 to 10 minutes with a little bit of a beat, but more meditative beat. Maybe ohms even, which is more drony, but have you ever heard like a song that's like a sea of ohms or something like that? Or maybe like a cello if you're going with that type of a vibe. Sometimes I like to do Garth Stevens or Stevenson, I forget his name. He is a cellist and his music and like the song before Shavasana, where it's just like he does a beautiful version of some music, or like Fields of Gold, there's a cello version of that, and then lead into like a more drony version of a cello for Shavasana. So it kind of like links together. All right. I hope that helps a little. Was that interesting or not so much?
Yeah, I liked it, except I'm just like, I Googled songs at 120 beats per minute to try to like get an idea. And all these songs like are so different to me. So I think we need to talk about just like, even if the beat per minute is the same, the energy can feel very different. Like,
Give
okay,
me an
7
example.
Years by Lucas Graham.
Once 7 years old.
Yeah. But
Right,
DJ
to me,
Got Us Fallen in Love by Usher and Pitbull are the same, like 120 beats per minute. How are those two the same when the energy is like completely different?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Musically, it just has to do with the way that the notes are being held. So even if the beat is the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It's a lot more held half and whole notes versus what's the other song?
DJ Got Us Fallen in Love, Usher
What's
and
that?
Pitbull.
Club Candy.
No,
not the song.
let me give you a different one. You'll know. Telephone by Lady Gaga and Beyonce.
Go another
Are
one.
you a Gaga fan? Who knows?
I mean, I know some Lady Gaga songs, but her older
Okay,
stuff.
Bad Romance. Bad Romance by Lady Gaga.
Yeah. Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa. So that had more quarter notes versus what was the other one?
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. So it had more held notes, which gives it a more chill, swanky vibe. And you could
Huh.
be, this is like getting really like musically weird. You could be like on the beat, right? Versus like
Mhm.
a slower offbeat music, which gives it a different vibe too. But that's what changes something from being like an upbeat pop song to like maybe a little bit more of a vibey song to being like a swing beat or like a bluegrass beat. Like they can all carry the same BPM, but have a different way of changing what the notes sound like in within that beats per minute, which changes the feeling. So it's not just matching the BPM, it's matching the energy of what you want it to be. That's a very good point.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I just
So
got a
you can't
little,
just like, no, I love it. I love that you educated us. And I think it's important. You can't just like choose a song by BPM, but like not even listen to them, just like put them in your playlist. And then you end up with like this crazy jumble, like not exactly what you expected. You
that's
can't just
actually,
follow the BPMs.
that's right. And that's sort of the same as like your yoga classes, right? So you can't just like write a sequence on a piece of paper and then teach it. You have to
Yeah.
practice it and embody it first to make sure that it works. Because just because it works on paper doesn't mean it's going to work in real life. And it's the same with your playlist. You can't just like make a playlist and never actually listen to it ahead of time because like it might be a disaster. Or it's like a
Yeah.
live version of the song that you didn't realize had like weird talking in the middle. Like you got to listen to it first.
Yes.
Super important. All
Yeah.
right. So that's
Cool.
like the intricate parts of the musicality of it. Any
Mhm.
questions on that part? Okay, cool. So now let's talk about how to weave a theme into the playlist because we are the theme weavers. So one way is to choose a song that lyrically or emotionally reflects the theme. But remember, it doesn't have to be exactly literal. So for example, if your theme is Yoga Sutra 1.1, Atta Yoga Anusasana, which translates to now the practice of yoga begins. You might choose songs that evoke a sense of presence and beginning. They don't have to all have songs that say like beginning or now in them, right? It might just like be something that gives you that feeling of beginnings versus literally being like, now we go.
Yeah. So you could start with a track that has a sound of a sunrise or dawn, something that evokes that and symbolizes a fresh start. And then as you move through the class, you might choose songs with lyrics that reflect mindfulness or being in the moment. And then for the peak, maybe something more dynamic that encourages full engagement with the present moment.
Exactly. And then for Shavasana, you can end with a track that brings everything back to stillness, reinforcing that idea of being present in the now. Something like the song Weightless by Marconi Union. It's perfect for that because it's designed to be relaxing and meditative.
Yeah, I love it. So a concrete example might be starting with Be Here Now by Beautiful Chorus.
I love that
Love that
song.
song. It's like, yeah, on a lot of my playlists.
I love Beautiful
First,
Chorus.
yeah,
They are a
yeah.
beautiful chorus of voices.
And they are just like that yoga music, like the go-to yoga music. So yeah, so that for centering, and then you move into something like Om Namah Shivaya by Deva Ramal.
Which you would never
Ramal.
do. And clearly I wrote this because you would never put that song in your playlist, but I would.
I might.
Would you?
I have a few playlists that do have like some chanting songs on them,
Cool.
but not for the middle of class, but it
Oh,
would be there somewhere. And
I
then
would.
ending with, like you said, weightless for Shavasana. So each of these tracks supports the energy of the class while subtly reinforcing the theme of presence, being in the now.
Exactly. And then here's a tip. Don't feel like you need to stick strictly to instrumental or lyric free music. And I'm giving you this tip from a person who tends to stay instrumental and lyric free. But songs with words can be powerful, especially if the lyrics resonate with your theme. So like Be Here Now by Beautiful Chorus is like exactly a Sutra 1.1, right? But you can be mindful that the lyrics aren't distracting from the practice, which will be very different for Farron and I, right? So I know, and she told us that Farron loves to teach with words and uses a totally different music style than I tend to in my classes. I usually don't use English at all in my classes until the song before Shavasana. And if a song has any words, it will typically tend to be Sanskrit. So as I don't know, I just said that as a question. That was weird. Sanskrit, so as not to distract and pull students away from the moment they're in. And my students give me that feedback too. They'll say things like, when songs have words, I have no idea what you're saying versus the words. So not only are they like pulled away from the moment, they have trouble focusing on my voice. But that's like a learning style thing too.
So one thing that I just thought about that's interesting is like when I do play like chanting songs, like usually like right before Shavasana or like even in Shavasana, I always feel the need to like translate it for my students. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But like I feel like it would be distracting to me if I'm laying in Shavasana and there's a chant going over and over again and I don't know what the hell they're saying because it's in Sanskrit.
I
Like
get
that would
that.
be distracting to me. I would be like, I want to know what the hell I'm saying.
I don't usually do
So,
chanting in Shavasana. It would be the song before
okay.
Shavasana,
Okay.
like
But
in a
still,
twist.
like, yeah,
But
I would
still,
be
it's to
wondering.
educate. You're educating people.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that's taking you out of your experience.
Yeah. Because I want to know what they're saying. If they were chanting in English or if it was an English song, I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, I get that. Do you know that lately I have a confession? I haven't used playlists that I made at all. I've been using my Spotify day list that says like Tuesday mornings, you like relaxing yoga and ragas for yoga music. And I just hit play and I hope for the best. Sometimes I change it
Yeah.
for like the last song. But lately I've been doing that because again, I don't use it lately as part of my class. It's just blocking out the noise of the building that we're in.
Yeah. That's funny. I use my day list sometimes too. And I'm just like, we'll see how this goes, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And usually AI does a pretty good job.
They do. And they know on Tuesdays
Yeah.
and Thursdays or 9:30, that's what I'm listening to. Versus other days,
Yeah.
it knows that, you know, we're listening to show tunes or something.
Yeah. I'm looking at my playlist to give more examples of like words. I mean, songs that have words that go along with the theme.
Mhm.
So I pulled up my Vinyasa root chakra playlist. So if I'm
Mhm.
teaching a root chakra centered class, um, like trying to like find one that people would know. Home by Philip Phillips.
I love that song.
Okay.
Places go home. Oh, oh. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean that's just one example. Like it's about home. Like your root chakra is about feeling like grounded and home and roots. And
Mm-hmm.
so like a lot of these songs on this playlist are like rooted, grounded, roots girl, home. Like yeah, so they have words in English, but they evoke that theme. So yeah, just another example.
That's good. I bet a lot of people would like that if they're not me.
If they're not you.
The problem is that I stop paying attention to the teacher and I start singing the song. So like
Oh.
yesterday I went to a class and it was like literally half the music was stuff that my rock band Devil's Rock plays as cover music. And so the whole time I'm like singing my harmonies in my head and I'm like conducting with my head and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm in a yoga class. And then I'd be like back and then I'm like, ho, hey, I'm trying to do it right. Oh, like I'm just like not present. I'm in the music. But maybe
Uh-huh.
that's a me problem. Or maybe some people really like that and they don't actually want to be in their head and they want to just be in the music. And that's a tool for them to get out of their mind.
Yeah. And I think it can be different with every practice because sometimes I don't pay attention at all. Like, I don't even hear the playlist that the teacher has on. I'm so in my head or in my body or I don't know what, but I don't even notice the playlist like at all.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm like grooving and dancing because I'm like, oh, this is a really good playlist. And I'm like still in my practice, but I'm like
Are you
moving
like,
around
as you're
more.
rising your hands up for like Warrior One, you're like rolling it out and then like,
N-
woo,
Never like
bottom.
that. No, it's more
No?
of like a bop side to side.
Okay, so
Or
it's
like, but I love
I like it.
that.
I love that for
Fun.
you.
Those are good classes for me.
Plus, I feel like you're in a really bad mood. Like, think about how music just totally changes that. When I'm in like a cruddy mood, I'll put on Lizzo in the kitchen. I start walking around like, I do my hair toss, check my nails, baby, how you feeling? And I'm like, I'm feeling good as hell. Like walking around the kitchen, it just changes the whole. I'm no longer angry cooking. I am like hot girl cooking.
Yeah.
I'm still like maybe a little bit angry, but like I'm feeling really good because like
Yeah.
she's telling me to feel good. So like it can totally transform your entire feeling.
So if you're teaching like on a Monday at the end of the day when people have been at work all day and they've had a freaking Monday, then maybe that's a great song to like play in their yoga practice.
I do love
You're
that
like,
song.
no, I disagree.
I disagree, but I might put it on before class or after class.
Okay.
Sometimes I start, the other day I taught a Pink themed class because it was the day after I went to the Pink concert. And
Yeah.
the music had nothing to do with Pink, but as soon as it ended, I put on a Pink song, and everybody's like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "That was just like a big shift in energy." I'm like, "I know, but let's do it. Let's do it. Everybody dance!" And they're all looking at me like, "All right, never mind. Music's going off."
Yeah. So yeah, you also have to think about that as a yoga teacher. Is not just your playlist during class, but like what do you play before and after your class while people are like getting into the room or leaving the room, packing up. Like there's also that. So yeah.
I have my before class playlist, before class music playlist, but sometimes I also play my Studio Tunes playlist. Before class is a little bit more ambient. Studio Tunes has songs with words that I feel like make me feel reflective, but like they're just like normal songs. So it depends on my mood. I also have a Thanksgiving playlist that because I always teach the Thanksgiving class for like the past 8 years. And it's just like all thankfully style songs. But I don't play them in the
Thankfully
class.
style.
Yeah. So if you need a thankfully style songs playlist. Also known as like grateful.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, when I leave music on while people are setting up in the room before class starts, I have it like kind of reflect the style of teaching that's coming. Like if it's going to be a gentle yoga class, it's very like gentle, gentle. But if I'm getting people ready for hot lift and flow, which is like weights and cardio and yoga, like all in one, yeah, it's going to be way more upbeat because I'm like, all right, get ready. You can't just go from like
You're going to
super
the yoga
slow to
club.
like, ah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It feels like a club in there sometimes. So, anyways,
Banging.
that's important to think about transitions during your playlist. You want your playlist to flow just like your class and avoid any sudden changes in tempo or style that might jolt your students out of their practice.
Like that random word breathe in the middle of a very ambient song.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to experiment. The more you play around with different types of music, the better you'll like it. The better you're going to get, excuse me, at creating playlists that truly enhance your classes. Listen to how your students respond and tweak your selections as needed. Farron, I use Spotify for my playlist. What do you use?
I also use Spotify. Everyone at my studio uses Spotify except for one, and he uses Apple Music.
Another hint, you should put your phone on do not disturb if you're using your phone as your Spotify player, because the worst is when you're hooked up to the Bluetooth when you get a phone call.
Yeah.
That's happened to me.
So we at our studio, we have a dedicated iPhone. It used to be an iPod, but now it's an iPhone.
Because those are
But there's no
waterproof
like
and iPods
service
aren't?
to
Is
it.
that why you did it?
Yes,
Because
pretty
they're in a
much.
hot studio, it gets too hot and moisture builds, and then they kept breaking.
Yeah, it's lasted a lot longer, but it's not a phone that like is hooked up to any phone service, but it's only there to play music. So like you look up your own Spotify account, find your own playlist, and you play it on that. So you're not bringing your own device into class. But remember, the playlist is just one tool in your toolkit. It's there to support the theme and the practice, not to overpower it. So if you ever feel like the music is becoming more of a distraction, it might be worth reevaluating your choices or just teaching in silence.
Yes. And about that, I want to comment about how you need to be comfortable teaching without music too. Music's come from technology, and sometimes technology malfunctions or breaks. And I have seen teachers get super flustered, thrown off because they depend on their playlist as a crutch in their teaching. And then in the moment, they have no idea how to teach if the music doesn't work. So it's really important to not rely too much on your music and your playlist so that if it breaks, you can still teach. And you're not all of a sudden filling all the silence because the silence was filled by other sound. And then you're just like talking the whole time, or just like have no idea what to teach in when because you relied on the playlist. So we really want to make sure that we can do it without it too. In fact, in my first 200 hour, we were not allowed to use music when we taught. I don't know about you guys, but we were forced to teach without getting on a yoga mat and just using our words, and also without any music. So that way you're comfortable and have all the right words to be able to teach without actions. And so that way you do not rely on music as a teaching tool, and it's just you and relying on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. In yoga teacher training, we also didn't focus on teaching with music, but then we had a lesson at the end of teacher training that was like, here's how to build a playlist if
Yeah,
you're going to use
same.
it.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we should also touch briefly on how the playlist can be a tool, though, to help you keep track of where you are in your teaching.
Exactly. And I know that Heidi never plans her classes or has notes. I don't either. So she also doesn't want to be continually staring at her watch. When you think about creating the playlist and using the bell curve in your planning, when you're teaching, you'll be able to know when it's time to shift the class forward because the tone of the music changes. This means it's not just a tool to create an experience for your students, but also a tool to keep you on track as you teach.
Yeah, I think that's really important because that way, well, it depends, right? Because Farron and I don't plan our classes. Like you just said, Farron, sometimes you'll be teaching something and you're already cooling them down and the music's still in the fast part. So like it's hard, like which comes first, right? But sometimes it just doesn't line up, but it can be a tool to help you, especially if you practice ahead of time. Like if you're a newer teacher that makes your playlist and creates like a written out class plan, but you don't want to look at your notes, you sort of practice it that way. And then you know what falls into what, where. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like we're using the playlist as a tool to help you with timing, but then also don't rely on it because if you don't have your music for some technological reason, you also need to be able to keep your own time.
Another one of the things why it's super easy to be a teacher.
So easy.
So
It's like
easy.
not even a real job.
It's not even a real job. It's just
Or being
playing for
sarcastic
fun.
if people don't know.
Oh, the sarcasm is dripping off of our voices. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I also want to add that the suggestions we make for songs on the inspo sheets, every other episode that we've done, there's usually song choices on there. Those can be used in different spots depending on where you are in the bell curve of class that you're trying to create. So we might list songs all with words that some are slow, some are fast. So you have to discern like where they fit in within your bell curve of your timing. And another tip, it can also help to label all your playlists if you're trying to match them to themes. So, you know, every time you're going to teach a class on Abhyasa and Vairagya, you know just which playlist to use because it's like Abhyasa Vairagya 60 minutes or something like that. We have a fun episode for next season planned, sort of planned, where Farron has a whole playlist that she'll be able to link that completely connects to the theme of the class she's giving. You're all going to love it.
It's like my favorite playlist and my favorite class to teach. And it's just, it's so good. Anyways, it's going to be great. Until then, as you plan your next class, think about the energy curve, that bell curve you want to create, and how your playlist can mirror that. And don't forget to weave in your theme, whether it's through lyrics, mood, or both.
That's all we really have planned for today's episode of Theme Weavers. So we hope that this gives you some fresh ideas for crafting playlists that support and elevate your class themes.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us. If you found it helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And as always, keep weaving those themes into your teaching and go to our website, themeweaversyoga.com/episode 47. The link is also in the show notes to request the inspo sheet for this episode, which will help you connect playlists to your classes and your theming. It'll look a little different, but it will be great. Then please reach out to us. Of course. Reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, or email. Let us know how it lands. And we're here to support you as a fellow yoga teacher in your class prep and delivery. So let us know how we can be of the most support. So like we've gone over playlists, we've gone over how to choose a theme. Like if there's something else that you're like, but how do I do this? Let us know and we can probably help.
Definitely. We love special requests. That's how I start every class. What do you want to work on today? Tell us what you want to work on. We're here to help you. So we appreciate you. Reach out. Let us know. Don't forget to tune in next week for a new episode of Theme Weavers. And until next time,
we weave you in peace.